Okay, and welcome to this webinar, 8 Steps to Business Recovery. Thanks for taking the time to come along this evening. I hope you get some good stuff out of this to help in your particular business. I'm going to share a screen in a little bit, but before I do that, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Hunter Leonard. I'm the founder and CEO of Silver and Wise, which is a specialist mature age business consulting practice that helps mature age individuals start and run successful businesses. We have a network of mature age, very experienced business advisors around Australia, including Greg Albert, who's your advisor in the Hunter and Newcastle region. And Greg's also on the webinar this evening. So at the end of this, we'll give you some details of how you can contact Greg if you want to have a conversation with him following the workshop on any of the content of it. We've been going for about 4 or 5 years, and we focus on basically helping mature age individuals start and run businesses, but also on future of work planning. And our passion is to do this because mature age individuals are experiencing a lot of ageism and discrimination, and therefore they're looking for alternative opportunities to generate income because it can be quite hard for them to find a job. So, but beyond that, all of our coaches have significant experience in running businesses of their own, in business coaching, and in successfully growing businesses in lots of different industries. So they're a good resource for you to have as a business owner. And tonight's topic is about this, the context of recovery. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about the COVID-19 pandemic, which is affecting a lot of markets around the world. I mean, some companies are doing well, others are suffering. So we're going to talk about this idea of recovery in your business, but it certainly can be applied to any market-specific event as well. Certain markets will go through downtimes, and you can use this as a business owner to generate recovery and growth in your business in those circumstances. And the way I like to look at handling problems is really to break them down into bite-sized chunks and to handle different elements of your business. So I'm going to go through these 8 steps to business recovery tonight and to give you a bit of context of where they come from. And then we're going to go and dive into each of those areas, give you some tips on some areas that we think you should be looking at in your business. And hopefully that'll give you a chance to then look at those areas in your own business and take something out of it that you can put into immediate action, depending on how your business is going at the moment. So I'm just going to share my slides now for this. And basically, we're talking about these strategies because in our experience, we've been through many circumstances of different companies, different markets, different products facing tough challenges in their business. And we've also coached and worked with a lot of business owners in lots of different markets. And on top of that, we've also surveyed lots and lots of business owners. In fact, over 10,000 business owners have completed our surveys. And that's given us a really insightful amount of data to find out what businesses struggle with, what challenges they run into. And that has generated these 8 particular steps that we're going to talk about tonight. We're looking at them through the lens of a recovery cycle. So you can also use these 8 steps at any moment in your business, any time in your business, to strategically plan and grow your business. But for tonight, we're specifically talking about the times where you might be running into a particular challenge with your business. So that's the element that we're going to talk about. And of course, you can use the chat function if you want to leave us a note during the course of it, and hopefully I'll get a chance to answer some of those questions this evening. Otherwise, we'll follow up and come back to you afterwards on that as well. So let's get into it. The 8 recovery rooms. We talk about this concept of these rooms. So imagine a room, a business with 8 rooms. These are the 8 key rooms that every business has. They're also the 8 key challenges that these 10,000 business owners told us about in our surveys. And we're going to cover off each one of these 8 rooms and talk about elements of how you can work on your business, breaking it down into these individual rooms, which then allows you to break down activity to a specific focus. Sometimes tough conditions in a business can seem all encompassing, and the challenge can seem incredibly large. My viewpoint is that if you then break that down into specific areas, it gives you a chance to focus on those areas, not necessarily worry about the whole problem, but worry about one component of the problem and fix those particular elements, then move on to the next area and focus on those areas. And as you go, you're fixing elements of the problem or coming at the problem from these different viewpoints. So the first one we're going to talk about is strategy and leadership. Then we're going to move on to marketing and PR, and then so on through these 8 particular areas. So why are these the 8 rooms? Well, I've talked a little bit about us knowing these particular 8 rooms from our experience as well, but also through these 10,000 surveys of business owners. Now, by comparison, a Gallup survey is around 1,000 businesses, or 1,000 people. So whenever you see something on an event or related to an election, for example, then the Gallup survey is what they might be referring to in saying that 52% are going to vote for this party and 48% are going to vote for that party. It's usually about 1,000 individuals. So you can see that this survey is pretty big, 10 times the size of a Gallup survey, and that gives us some fair confidence that these are the things that business owners are running into. As I said, these 8 themes came from that. On top of that, we've also serviced more than 500 clients in the last 20 years. So we are well versed in working with business owners like yourself, and we've worked with a lot of different business owners in different markets. So it's important to sort of see that what we're talking about here is really the opinion of lots and lots of business owners, just not just our opinion on things that you should be doing. So let's go through that particular those particular rooms, and I want to start here with the strategy and leadership room. And here's some things that you really should be focusing on. Now, let's just define strategy and leadership for a starting point. Really, this is the room in your business where you're planning the medium to longer term future of your business. It's also the area where you're encouraging others to follow you on the journey that you've set for your business. So your mission or your vision, you're getting other people to follow you. The definition of a leader, obviously, is someone who can get others to follow. And to do that, you have to bring them along on the journey. You have to share with them your plans and your goals and get them to follow you along. Now, in regards to strategic planning, if you've got a strategic plan in place and something occurs like the coronavirus pandemic, then there's obviously going to be some emergency things that you want to put into your business straight away. So it might be a microscope on expenses. It might be looking at the agreements you have in place, your finance, the revenue that's going on. Obviously, there were many businesses that took a big hit in terms of revenue when the coronavirus lockdown occurred, or that process that we've gone through. But there's also many businesses that have grown in revenue as a result of this. So I'll talk a little bit about the pandemic, but let's talk, as I said at the start, let's talk about any particular situation that your business might be put in, whether it's market specific or more global, like this pandemic that's occurred. So then looking at these emergency things, once you've got those in place, then our recommendation is that you then have to reestablish what is the situation with your existing clients, what's happening in your specific market, rather than looking at the globe and everything that's going on or the bad news in the media. Take a really close look at your specific market, the competitors, what's going on with your business, what's happened with your clients, and look at what would be required as a result of that particular current situation. Of course, you're the leader of your business, but we'd also recommend you connect with other leaders in key areas of help. So if you've got a finance issue and you don't really have some really strong skills in that, or you need assistance, then reach out to a financial advisor. If you need help with marketing, then reach out to a marketing advisor. Now, we might have had a couple of additional people coming in on the webinar at different times, so I'll just point out that I am actually recording the webinar for you. So if you've missed a couple of minutes, it's not a problem, because you'll be able to get a copy of the webinar sent to you after this. So I'm just going to just double check. We've got no other people coming in. Okay, good. So after strategy and leadership, after you've had a look at this particular room, then the next room that you really want to be looking at is your marketing and PR. And the reason that marketing and PR becomes important is because marketing is really the engine that drives the number of customers you have, the value of customers that you have, and it doesn't really matter what business you're running. You're going to have some kind of marketing action going on to generate either more sales from your existing customers or generating new customers. Now, each of you will have different businesses, and of course the marketing will be different for each of those businesses. You'll have a different mix of existing clients and new clients, but one of the things you really have to do very, very quickly if you have a major event in your marketplace is to assess your marketing expenses and really triage anything that you're not 100% certain is working, to cut those marketing expenses out and really focus on what is working and investing your time and money in those successful actions in regard to your marketing. And once you've got that triage done on the expenses, because you may have taken a hit on revenue, so you really got to be looking at the expense line to get that down in order to make sure that you can extend your survival period. Once you've done that, then you need to look at, again, understanding your customers, your competitors, the marketplace, and yourself. So that's really step 2 of any recovery using marketing and PR. And if you haven't got a strategic plan in place for your marketing, then you need to be looking at measuring and refining that marketing over time. So whatever you have been doing, see if you can put in place measures on that marketing to determine which is the best return on investment of your money. If I was talking specifically about starting a business, this would be the sort of new understanding of customers, competitors, and marketplace. But tonight we're assuming you've got an existing business that is in some kind of trouble, and you need to recover. So this idea of strategically planning your marketing and measuring it and refining it over time is a really critical component to recovery as far as marketing and PR is concerned. We then obviously move on to sales. Now, marketing's job is to generate leads and to generate new opportunities for sales to customers. Sales is where you then convert those opportunities. And in terms of the sales room in your business, there's 3 or 4 things that are really important to focus on if you're in a situation where you're under some threat externally, such as the coronavirus pandemic. The first thing I'd say you should be doing is triage, is to look at all your current customers. So one of the first things I did in my business when the coronavirus pandemic hit was to speak to every single one of our customers to find out what their situation was, who was going to have to reduce their spend on consulting or marketing, who was continuing on, who we needed to do deals with to help them through, which was also helping us through. And no matter what business you're in, I would be doing this step to just see what the actual situation is in regard to your sales. After you've done that, then it really is all about new sales. So if your revenue is down, then you have to find out where are the opportunities, low-hanging fruit, warm, cold leads that you have, pulling them all together and really, I'll use the term hitting the phones, but whatever your sales process is, it's all about driving as much possible focus on converting any leads that are available to you in order to continue your revenue going for as long as possible. Now, in some cases, with businesses throughout this pandemic, it might have been that your existing business was completely closed up. So in this case, we're going to talk about, and a word that you may have heard in the course of this, the idea of pivoting your business or finding new avenues for sales and revenue. So you really have to sweat every step of your sales and marketing funnel. And if your business model has been completely blown up, then it's a case of going back to all of those customers that you have relationships with to see whether there's some other way you can do business with them, existing customers or recently past customers. And then after you've looked at those, then you have to look at new revenue sources if there's nowhere that you can push for that. So let's talk about a few examples of this. Of course, we've seen cafes that haven't been able to have staff in the cafe or customers within the cafe in terms of a sit down, transitioning their business to being takeaway only or home delivery. We've seen businesses such as one of the friends of ours, which is in the locks and lash business, where they couldn't service existing customers, creating packages of product and online courses where people could learn how to do those things themselves. So they switched their business to more an education of their customers in this period, as opposed to actually delivering face-to-face training. They turned all of their training courses into online training courses. So the sales component is really important, because we're now talking about conversion of leads, but you have to take it in the order of looking at those current customers. What have you lost? What have you kept? Then looking at where you had prospects already in the funnel. How could you convert those? And then after that, going out to the newer audiences with your marketing and sales effort. This is then moving outwards from the most likely places of sources of revenue to less likely, or ones that are going to take more time or more expense in order to convert. Because if you've already got a customer, or you've been able to do a little bit of business with them, that's going to be less expensive for you per dollar to keep them going than it is to get a new customer, which can cost 8, 10, 12 times as much to convert into a sale. So that's why we talk about this idea that you go from the inside out. Of course, money is going to be a core area. Cash flow and money management is always a big issue for business owners, irrespective of whether they're going through a pandemic-induced revenue problem or a market situation. We see cash flow as being one of the key challenges that businesses have, and so therefore we focus on this in terms of the recovery phase, because the money part has got to be something you've got to really have a tight control on in the course of handling any market situation. So these are the steps in terms of recovery. First of all is obviously collect every debt that you're owed that's possible to be collected. Some of them may not be. You have to cut every nice to have expense. Now, every business has these nice to have expenses. If you don't absolutely need it, you need to cut it. I probably pulled $1,000 to $1,500 a month in software as a service expenses and other expenses in our business very, very quickly after the pandemic lockdowns occurred. And that really saved us quite a bit, and also extended our ability to handle based on the revenue that we had. I'd also counsel you to look at your ongoing or existing expenses, do agreements on them. So whether you've got leases, or you've got insurance payments, or you've got lease payments on cars and equipment, ring those suppliers, ring those people that you have those agreements with, and get on to seeing what you can do in terms of agreements, whether it's pushing dates out or reducing the expenses to some point, or having payment plans, or whatever. Obviously without burning relationships that you're going to need during the course of this. So of course we need a tight budget, and this is probably going to be tighter than you've ever set before, because your sales team are going to be focusing on the sales. The finance team, which in many cases for some of you as a small business owner, it's you with a different hat on. You need to focus on juicing everything you can out of the money that you do have. So revenues come down, expenses have to come down. Can you cover it with some kind of short-term debt? Now, I don't recommend going into debt that's going to be unable to be paid back in the future, but maybe some kind of short-term money coverage, whether it's from loans or otherwise, might be useful for your business in the short term. But just be very careful that this is not something you couldn't pay back once you start to recover the revenue. So just have a risk mindset with that where you can. Just going to stop that for a second, just to check on if we had any other late strugglers coming in, and we haven't, so we'll continue on. And we'll move to the next room, which is after money, we've got to start looking at quality. Now, quality is actually one of the biggest challenges that business owners in our 10,000 business owner survey said they had. Now, this was two parts to an issue. One was what quality should they deliver to the market, but also if they'd set a quality standard for their product, then it was the constant checking to make sure that quality was being delivered by their staff or by their business. Now, maybe you don't have a business that pitches at the quality level of a Tiffany and Co, but it doesn't really matter what quality level you're positioning your business at in the marketplace. You still need to make sure that that quality is maintained for any of the existing customers that you're trying to service. In other words, if you've promised a certain thing with an existing customer, then you want to make sure that you do deliver that, irrespective of market conditions. Don't drop the ball on this, because we see in the data that those that continue to deliver the quality they promised to existing customers will survive and recover quicker out of it, because, in other words, they haven't burnt bridges with existing clients. Now, for new customers, it's possible that there may be an adjustment in the quality. In other words, you may go for a lower price, lower value version of your product or service because the customers in your marketplace need that flexibility in terms of the product. So they may accept less features and benefits in your product or service in order to get a lower cost for themselves, because they might be in a similar situation to you. So this just requires you surveying your customers and understanding how the needs of the quality needs in relation to your product and service have changed as a result of these market conditions. It might be that you escalate value and quality because people are looking for a better solution. There might be less people looking for it, but they're willing to pay more for it. So you just need to jockey this one around, but certainly don't stop delivering on the promises that you have with your existing customers. Now, after quality, really, the next thing I really want to talk about is this: is the concept of your people or your staff. Now, you may not employ people as staff, but you may have suppliers to your business. And if one thing came out of the coronavirus pandemic at the start, it was that there was a number of businesses and people doing the right thing, and there was a number of businesses doing the wrong thing. In other words, there was people that could afford to were cutting staff time, or they were cutting off contracts, or they were putting making people redundant. There were others that probably couldn't afford it, who went about trying to look after their existing staff, and this was even before JobKeeper was announced, that they were looking for solutions, whether it was having their staff take their holiday leave at that time, or take all of their leave, or sitting down with the staff and giving them maybe less hours so that they could get everyone through on a lower pay level, but at least get to the other side so that people wouldn't lose their jobs completely. And also we saw quite a bit of people really not keeping up their agreements to suppliers, which had predated the coronavirus. So they were talking about, well, okay, I'm just not going to pay any of my bills. And you saw some fairly large, well-known people in very, very large organisations who are performing and handling this pretty badly. So now it may be that, of course, your business just without JobKeeper or otherwise, you're just not going to be able to survive. But see if you can sit down and have just human, warm conversations wherever possible with staff and suppliers to sort of keep the relationships where they can be. And there's going to be areas where you just can't handle it, and that's fair enough. But at least you're having an open, honest conversation with people. But also, there's another element of this too, and we saw this, that there was staff who were now on JobKeeper being paid and not wanting to work for that. So they were kind of seeing it, well, I should just get that irrespective of that. But really, if your business employs people, the staff that are there need to be given a call to arms, that in a tough crisis of a market, you need everyone to pull as hard as possible in the same direction. And strive to be as good as they possibly can as part of your team, despite the tough conditions. So I don't agree with this situation where you might have then people saying, well, I'm just going to take the money and not provide an exchange, because they have a responsibility as much as you do as a business owner. So these are some of the areas I think you should be looking at in terms of your people, keeping commitments where possible. But remember, it's also a moral agreement as well as it is a legal agreement. Client service is probably another part of the quality chain, but what we have seen is a lot of examples of businesses where they've strived for even better levels of service in the crisis, and they're starting to stand out from other businesses that are kind of dropping the ball on it. So our viewpoint is that you need to be flexible, as human as possible in discussions around needs and wants of your clients. What service are they expecting? Did you deliver on the promise? How are you fixing it if you didn't? Clear communication of what your standards are during the course of it. So we have one client in particular who's kept a very clear communication line with their trade customers about when and where they're open, what are the COVID safe policies they have in place, not allowing people to visit if they're ill, but they've kept in contact with their clients and they've really surveyed them as to what they can do to continue to service, knowing that the business has this issue that's going on that has created conditions that are somewhat far from normal, and these communications have helped them keep very strong relationships with the majority of their trade customers who generate most of their revenue. In fact, as of today, I think I was talking to them and they haven't lost one client in terms of them going elsewhere as a result of them keeping that good, strong communication in place. And the last of the 8 recovery rooms is what we call the adapt and disrupt room. Now, of course, COVID-19 has been the mother of all disruptions. It's probably the biggest global issue since World War II. But nonetheless, there are markets where elements of products and services have gone gangbusters. We've seen Bunnings selling out of all sorts of things, Officeworks selling out of home office equipment. We've seen people staying at home and therefore wanting to spend money on making their home a really nice place to be. So renovation products are up. Of course, sanitizers and masks and these other things are up. And then we've seen on the other side, wholesale, lots of markets where the really income has gone to zero pretty much overnight. So we've seen artists and musicians not being able to perform. But even within those, we've seen musicians and artists pivot to online concerts, to doing other things. I've seen one singer and musician who already had talent in it, but has started painting, become a painter and sold their paintings in a course of this. So it's a real pivot from what they normally do. So in regards to this particular one, we talk about this concept of a weather eye. Now, this is an old term that sailors used to use, which is the idea of keeping your eye on the horizon to see what is going on and how can you adapt yourself in order to continue the survival of your business, whether this is new products and new services, whether it's a new set of clients, whether it's a new delivery model, if it's a new value proposition, all of these things. So really the suggestion here is to sit down with your business and say, well, what are the trends that are up and down in regards to my business? How can I pivot, adapt, reset to take advantage of what's going on? But just beware of short-termism. I saw a really great example of this the other day, and it was an alcoholic beverage company that had switched their production to produce sanitizer, and were then complaining that they had all this sanitizer that nobody wanted to buy. The sanitizer, by the way, was 5 times the price of other sanitizers that were in the market. So they'd gone this short-term route of saying, well, we'll just go and produce sanitizer, but they were pitched at a really premium level and it really didn't meet the market. And so they've been then left with all of this quantity of sanitizer, which they were then basically asking the government to buy off them to keep in store. And there was all these other cheaper solutions. So if you're looking at your business, just be aware that whatever you choose to do in regards to pivoting or adapting your business, are you doing it short term? That's fine, but are you going to then reset back to your existing business model when the crisis is over? And let's put coronavirus aside for the moment and just think about a specific market disruption that might occur because of the launch of a new service. For example, if you're a taxi driver and Uber came out, that was a big disruption to the taxi industry. So just beware of thinking short term. and not thinking about what are the options for you in the medium to longer term as well. So it's just a delicate balance to make sure you're not making decisions that are then going to damage the long-term future of business because you've switched to try and handle a short-term issue, which by the time you've handled it has gone away. So that is the end of the 8 recovery rooms and some of our suggestions on what you should do in the course of handling a particular market situation or a pandemic like COVID-19. We, of course, have a team of coaches and advisors who are available to help people on a one-to-one basis. And I wanted to just let you know about a service that we have and one that you can take up with Greg in the Hunter and Newcastle region, and that's called our Recovery Ready service. This is a service that costs $495, which is including GST. You can actually book it at that particular address there, which is silverandwise.com.au/business ready. And what you get in this service is we will do 2 benchmarks with you, and we will then conduct 2 45-minute Zoom coaching sessions with you to follow up on those benchmarks and to talk about specific issues that you have in your business and how we might apply these 8 rooms to help you handle the recovery of your business. You'll also get a copy of my book, which covers the 8 rooms, the 8 key success steps to running a business well. And you'll also get a copy of our Basics of Business Recovery course as well. So that's the service. And if you have any other questions, you can also reach out to Greg at silverandwise.com.au, and hopefully he'll be able to answer those questions for you. Or you can flick us an email and hopefully we can get the information back to you that you need. So I'll sign off now and appreciate you taking the time to join the webinar, and we'll talk soon. Take care.